like, we haven't quite reached the point that it feels like we need to do our floors. Yeah. He's like, we could do this. It's like, no. Is it functioning? Is it broken? Is it working? No, it's doing everything. Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Is this microphone working? I'm not sure if it's working. Oh, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. May I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Greenberg?
Here.
Mrs. Christensen?
Here.
Dr. Lim?
Here.
President Pantera?
Here.
Ms. Wani?
Here.
Next on the agenda is approval of agenda. Dr. Corson.
Thank you, President Pantera. Items approved by consent will not come up for discussion during the meeting, but will be approved when the agenda is adopted. This is possible since members of the governing board receive the agenda along with backup materials at least 24 hours prior to the meeting and have had time to review and consider all items. Prior to the agenda being adopted, members of the governing board may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the floor for discussion at the appropriate place on the agenda. Any member of the audience who submitted a blue public comment card prior to the start of the meeting will be recognized to speak on that agenda item under items for approval. I'd like to offer the agenda as posted.
Prior to the start of the meeting, no blue public comment cards were received so far. So for that reason, no items are needed to be removed, except does any member of the governing board wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Okay, then. None. Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda and recommended consent agenda items?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously with 5 yeses or no. All right. Next on the agenda is governing board statements. Would anyone like to go first?
Good evening,
Mrs. Wani.
everyone. First, I just want to say welcome and good evening to all of you. And oh my goodness, let's all just kind of take a moment and look at this incredible artwork done by our PV students over here, and just cannot wait to recognize all of you and be able to look and appreciate at this art all the time once it's up on these walls. So just amazing, incredible. What talent, it's just mind-blowing. I want to just take a real quick second and give a shout out and a thank to PV High School, who invited me to come hang out and speak to their students working on their Seal of Civics. I had a wonderful time with the students. We ran a simulated governing board meeting, It was very fun, and I think we might have some future electeds in that cohort. Let me tell you, and just thank you to the K through 12 curriculum specialist for social studies and world language dual language immersion, Miss Cheryl Cheriton Kirschenbaum, and Mr. Tyler Nellis over there, and of course to the principal Ian Dennis. They were very welcoming, and I had a blast, and it was so much fun, and it was really great to see these wonderful high school students just so passionate and interested in the election process and governance and civics and giving back to the community, and just wonderful public service minded little community over there. So it was pretty wonderful. Really looking forward to the next couple of weeks. We've got so many wonderful and exciting things going on as we wrap up the school year. I hope everybody takes some time to enjoy it, take a deep breath, because the summer will be here before we know it, and then some of us have to figure out what we're doing with our kids. So for the time being, we get to enjoy it, and I'm sure teachers are ready for a break, and kids are getting restless, but the finish line is near. It's almost there. Hang in there and enjoy, all the wonderful things that we get to do as a community in the next couple of weeks. I know I am. Thank you.
Mrs. Christensen?
Thank you. I'd just like to take some time just to welcome all of you. It's so nice when we have full meetings, even if it's just for the beginning of the meeting when we have beautiful artwork to show. Thank you. As a reminder, we represent your voice, so we always appreciate, as a governing board member and a governing board body, to hear from you. So thank you for coming today. And I do want to mention that we were able to honor our volunteers in paradise. We call it our VIPs. And it was this week, and every single member of the governing board attended. So I'm not going to dwell, because Dr. Lim made us all cry with her story about how special the volunteers were and help her overcome things. So I just wanted to welcome you today and say thank you for being here.
Dr. Lim?
Sure. It's been a really special time being on this board, and I don't know if all the board knows, but I have made it a mission to once a month go out and visit a new site or a new group of staff just to connect and learn something I don't know about the district. And I just want to highlight where I went last month because it was such a special visit. So I went to visit PV Online and Sweetwater Community School. I already knew they existed, I already knew what they were doing, but to hear from them the level of commitment they have to our students. So our PV Online are serving our students that may not be able to come in person for whatever reason is keeping them from being in a classroom, whether it's a choice or they just don't fit in a regular classroom. They're able to access PV through our online programs, or even take an 8th hour if they want to add a class to their schedule outside of the traditional day. But then they also have the homebound program for the rare group of students that can't be in a classroom at all for whatever medical reason is keeping them out of our classrooms. And they're working tirelessly to make sure these students are served. And then they're partnering with Sweetwater Community School, which if you haven't visited there, I would highly recommend it. Community within that name is why that school is so special. While we know it's a high school and they're graduating high schoolers as well, community is the most important part of that because they are creating community. Not only are they working with PV Online to get these students classes after hours that fit best with their schedule, they're also creating the community for the number of learners that come to them. They have this amazing process where from the moment that student walks in, they know exactly where they are and they monitor them all the way to the end. Principal Danner over there is doing an amazing job making sure from day 0, not day 1, day 0 before they even arrive, that he is prepared for them to come and is then working with them and creating community with them at the school and with their families to make sure they get over the finish line. Not just graduation, but what's their next step? How are they going to do it? And how do we give them the tools to get there? 2 demonstrations of why our non-traditional spaces have huge impacts, and it was just eye-opening. I knew the work they were doing, but to be in those buildings and feel the passion from those educators and those leaders, it was unbelievable. And if you haven't visited, please do. It's an amazing experience, and those educators are doing wonderful things. So thank you for the tour, and I look forward to potentially coming to your school soon.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's always great to see a packed room, even as Mrs. Christensen said, it's not necessarily going to be the entire meeting. We're really excited to get the new artwork on the wall, and congratulations in advance to all of our Purchase Award winners. As Mrs. Christensen noted, yesterday was the VIP celebration. It's an annual celebration, and one of the reasons it was yesterday or it was this week is this is National Volunteer Week. So I also want to shout out to every other volunteer. Our VIPs are indeed incredibly special and so very supportive of our students and our teachers and all of the things that they do. As we had, we had a little program, and you can't see it, and I know you can't see it, but they have a whole list of bullet points of the things that the VIPs do. And as I noted, when the VIP program first started, it was the first bullet point. That's what our VIPs did, going into the classrooms, going one-on-one and helping with small group instruction. And now it is this massive list of tutoring in the summer, helping in other programs, helping our testing programs, helping facilitate student groups for avid tutorials, chaperoning field trips, helping in the nurse's office. It's an incredibly robust program. But those are not our only volunteers. So for those of you in the audience, those of you watching online, everyone else, our parents and guardians and community members come into our schools every day to support our students and our staff. And I want to thank all of you as well. From the room moms and dads to somebody who can chaperone because their grandchild's going on a field trip. Any opportunity that you have and you have taken it and given to our schools, I want to thank you for that. Also had the opportunity since our last meeting to go to the PVA Prom Boutique for their third day, and once again just blown away by the support of the community, because everything there is donated. Either it's slightly used or I know this didn't happen while I was there, but it has happened in the past where somebody comes in and they need a size shoe that isn't there, and the PVA teachers will get on the horn and find somebody to donate to Amazon wish list, to get it from Amazon, to get it to the student before the prom, things like that. So, and I want to shout out, I saw Dr. Lindsay and others of our administrators there helping as well. It's an amazing program. I posted something online. A friend of mine is like, how can I donate to the boutique? There's one more day. Saturday's the last day. So if you have a student who's got their PV ID, send them over to the boutique. It's located at Sweetwater Community. So, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. It was good to hear what you said, Dr. Lim, about visiting sites. I remember when I first got on the board, within that first year, I went to all the sites, every single site. And I'd been teaching here a long time and thought I knew a lot about the district. I learned so much more than I ever thought I would by visiting all those different sites in the perspective. Of course, nowadays my site visits are limited to Sandpiper picking up my granddaughter, but it's always a valuable thing. I'm glad you're doing that. I too went to the Volunteers in Paradise event, and I'll repeat what I said there, not the whole thing, just the part that I like, is that they talk about VIP, but I think it should be VMP, because not Volunteers in Paradise, it's Volunteers Make Paradise. You can't have paradise without these volunteers doing what they do. Okay, we can't have paradise with any aspect of the great things we do missing. And I'm so thankful for all the people who were there, and some couldn't be there, and to reiterate what my colleague said, that it's a grand thing that they do. I love the art that we had out here, all the ones that we're going to talk about later. I was surprised myself because in the last 3 years I would kind of pick one out that I'd want hanging behind me. There's no art behind the president. I don't get to do that this year. So I'm really bummed out about that. It made me think, though, when did I first start loving art? Do you ever think about when the first time you understood there's something called art and love it? Okay, for me it was a school experience. Kindergarten, my father took me to a program at ASU, go Devils, during the summer. And it was at the Old Main, and I learned about this magical material. It's called paper mache. It's fantastic stuff. You got to try it. And I said, wow, it dawned on me that art is a great thing. It's fun. Been doing it ever, been encouraged my children, and now my granddaughter. She's going to be at the Desert Shadows Art Academy. Okay, she was bragging about that at the Elks Club, and one of the ladies there said, "Oh, you do art?" So, well, she gave her bingo card, turned the back of it, and said, "Well, why don't you draw me a picture or something?" And she signed it, gave it back, and the woman gave her $5. I was there to see her first commissioned work, and she was very proud of that. Because, you know, folks, really, any culture or society, that's like a barometer. How healthy is that culture? How healthy is that society? And if you look at the art of that society, is it strong? Is it vibrant? Do they have a really good art community going on? And then you say, yeah, okay, they have the time and resources to commit that kind of effort into art. And when I look around and I see the art here, not only the visual arts, but the dance, the music, everything else, like at the VIP, we had Perry's Valley Voice. They sang for us, and they were wonderful, especially their a cappella piece. Wasn't that great? We get timed? Oh my gosh. It's never supposed to happen. Well, I'll just conclude then and say I just think we have a very wonderful culture because we can support art, and we do. I guess I'm done. Timer, cut me off.
It's technically time for my husband to feed the kids, so that was that timer, but.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification. I was worried there. Oh, back with the glasses, excuse me. One of my favorite. Next on the agenda is awards and recognitions. Right?
Yes, President Pantera, so I'd like to invite the governing board to the front for tonight's awards and recognition.
Good evening, President Pantera, governing board members, Dr. Corson, members of cabinet, and attendees both in person and virtual. Tonight we have several recognitions to share with you. This evening we'll be inviting our honorees to the front of the room for recognition and a photo. So when your name is called, please make your way to the front of the room. Our first honorees recently delivered a stellar performance at the Arizona State DECA competition. In addition to earning the prestigious Diamond Level Chapter Award, recognized for excellence in innovation, advocacy, and community service, this chapter secured dozens of awards, including 5 first-place recognitions. Tonight, we would like to recognize these first-place recipients, so please help me welcome from Pinnacle High School for Franchise Business Plan, Augustus Ulrich. For Startup Business Plan, Charlotte Okrowski. For Sports and Entertainment Marketing Operations Research, Lucy Littenberg. For International Business Plan, Antonio Carrillo Castro. And for Hospitality and Tourism Operations Research, Raven Teagarden. These students are supported by staff sponsor Cheryl Shea.
I know I'm not supposed to talk, but I just want to say President Pantera did visit the site the week before they went to state, and he witnessed them in action. You also mentioned SEALs. 4 of these are seniors. Of those 4 seniors, they're 4 of 15 getting a personal financial literacy seal. So I'm extremely proud of that. And then I forget what else I'm proud of, but I'm just very proud of the Pinnacle DECA program.
Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you so much. I am proud of these kiddos. I'm so proud. And Dr. Corson can also come into the classroom as well. And we get the picture. Okay, thank you.
Our next honorees showcased exceptional talent, creativity, and dedication, earning top honors at the Arizona Science and Engineering Fair. These students distinguished themselves in a diverse range of competitive categories, including cellular biology, chemistry, computer science, physics, plant sciences, and engineering. Their projects tackled meaningful real-world challenges and showcased the rigorous STEM and CTE-focused curriculum provided here in Paradise. Please help me welcome from Greyhawk Elementary for cellular and molecular biology are microplastics present in plant cells, Braden Perry and Eli Hubble. For biochemistry, the effect of endostatin on cardiac tissue and the rescue of VEGF and FGF21, Nikhil Puttanraju. Also from PV Crest, for systems software, quantifying mitigating CNN representation instability for imaging safety, Anaga Vipangunta. And from PV Crest, for technology enhances the arts, cadenza promoting effective data-driven practice strategies for musicians, Artiro Chatterjee. Liam Wellen. And Arya Udahanskar. Our next honorees were selected to join the prestigious 2026 Arizona All-State Elementary Band. These elite musicians were nominated by their teachers and chosen from a highly competitive pool of talented students from across the state. Please put your hands together from Sonoran Sky, Zachary Green. And from North Ranch, Cecily Koppel. These students are supported by Director Anita Kreider. The next two recognitions participated in the Arizona Association for Pupil Transportation Special Needs Road EO. This event brought together teams of bus drivers who competed in 9 different challenges, including wheelchair securement, railroad crossing procedures, pre-trip inspection, emergency evacuations, and more. 2 of our drivers excelled in all areas and won first place honors. From our transportation department, Joni Begay. Also from our transportation department, Shantae Begay. Our next recognition is the Paradise Valley Education Support Professional of the Month. Mr. Sean Webster, PVSEA President, is here this evening to make the presentation.
Good evening, President Pantera, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Corson, Cabinet, and guests. My name is Sean Webster, and I'm the PVSEA President. It is my honor tonight to present the April ESP of the Month Award to Gracie Deviney. Sorry, it's been a long day. Library Media Technician at Indian Bend. Gracie's colleagues have shared some truly wonderful insights into her impact this year. She has been far more than a librarian. She has breathed a new light into the campus by transforming the library into a vibrant, high-energy hub for the entire community. Through her great library refresh, she dedicated countless hours sorting through decades worth of outdated materials and creating an open and inviting space where books on the shelves truly resonated with our students. Beyond revitalizing the physical space, Gracie demonstrated exceptional leadership during the Scholastic Book Fair by rallying volunteers and turning a major logistical task into a significant win for school spirit. Most importantly, she has replaced the era of hush library with a culture of laughter and curiosity, where she is challenging our students with riddles of the week and championing our young writers. Gracie has given our students a voice and genuine reason to be excited about reading. She is truly the heart and soul of our library. I would also like to note that we celebrate National Library Week and National Library Workers Day this week, which makes this recognition extra special for her passion for the hard work. Please join me in welcoming Gracie.
The Jerry L. Morgan Volunteer Award honors volunteers who display dedication and service to the community as exemplified by late UPC member Jerry Morgan. Tonight, UPC Chairperson Megan Starr is here to make a presentation.
Good evening, President, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent, and all of our guests. My name is Megan Starr, and on behalf of the United Parent Council, it is my distinct pleasure to present the 2026 Jerry Morgan Volunteer Award finalists and recipient. Tonight, we honor our remarkable nominees and announce the winner of this very hard award. The Volunteer Award is named in honor of Jerry Morgan, a dedicated champion of parent involvement in Paradise Valley Unified School District. It honors those who lead with their heart, serve without expectation, and dedicate themselves to making our schools a better place. The legacy of this award reminds us that behind every thriving school, there are volunteers who show up, often very, very early, and stay very, very late, and always with the singular purpose of strengthening our community. Let me introduce this year's 6 finalists. First, I want to say that the selection committee had an incredibly difficult time this year, narrowing down our finalists and ultimately picking the recipient. Every volunteer in this community is amazing. So, first, in no particular order for these finalists, Miss Nia Shaw. She's been an incredible force serving PV schools for over 2 decades. Through her digital citizenship program that she co-authored and created, she has taught over 1,000 students in our district. Emily Nelson is the kind of volunteer that always sees a need and immediately steps in, no questions asked. She has served as PTO president of Sonoran Sky Elementary for 3 years and spearheaded some of that school's most ambitious projects. Robbie Mosley. She's brought creativity and passion to her volunteer work at Horizon High School, championing programs that serve all of the students and directly benefit their families. Becky Lafferty is a steady, reliable presence at Paradise Valley High School. She launched a teacher grant program and created the student bus program, ensuring that our teachers have what they need to teach and that our students can actually get to school. Christy Moore is someone who truly embodies the spirit of service. From classroom support to district-wide initiatives, this Mountain Trails Middle School parent has contributed countless hours and brought a collaborative spirit that lifts everyone around. And the last of our finalists, Denise Amato, brings an infectious enthusiasm to everything she does at North Ranch Elementary. Whether organizing school events, welcoming new families, or coaching the Cowgirls flag football team, Denise approaches every task with joy and purpose. So I want to take a minute to thank and sincerely appreciate each and every one of our finalists. These individuals were all nominated by members of their community, their administrative staff, and their principals. It was an impressive group of people. I have a picture. There's most of them. Robbie is missing, but there's most of our finalists. All right, and from this extraordinary group of nominees, the United Parent Council is proud to announce that the 2026 Jerry Morgan Volunteer Award recipient is Jill Acasio. So we'll have Jill come up. Jill's dedication to PV schools is nothing short of extraordinary. Over the years, she served in numerous leadership roles within her school's parent organization, consistently steps up to take on the work that others might shy away from. And what sets Jill apart is not just the volume, which is huge, of her contributions, but the depth of her commitment. She creates a community culture. Her years of service reflect genuine, heartfelt dedication to every student and family. Jill has championed school programs that bring her families together on the campus. Here's some of hers. She has been involved in every major event at Greyhawk Elementary: bingo night, Lynx Laps, book fair, Blue Zone activities, STEAM night, Heroes Day, the holiday shop. She restocks the teacher's lounge to make sure the teachers have snacks to make it through the day. She volunteers as a chaperone for trips her children are not on. I heard from one parent who was incredibly grateful that she chaperoned the choir trip to make sure they had the requisite number of chaperones for that. She's also recruited and mentored fellow volunteers and built partnerships with local organizations. From one of the many, many nominations, what one person wrote kind of summed her up. Jill is the most dedicated, impactful volunteers our Greyhawk community has ever known. She is a true force of action. Jill does not wait to be asked. She never looks the other way when something needs to be done. She quietly steps in, takes ownership, and makes things happen. So we're very, very grateful to have volunteers like Jill in our district. They make this a fantastic place to be. So in closing, I just want to say, because it is Volunteer Appreciation Week, thank you not only to our 6 incredible finalists and to Jill, but also to every single volunteer across Paradise Valley Schools. They are the backbone of our school community. They give their time, their talent, and their energy. And that volunteering shows our kids that they matter, that their school matters, and that showing up for each other is the most important thing we can do. So thank you.
And lastly tonight, I would like to introduce our Director of Fine Arts, Ali Rai, who is responsible for cultivating and overseeing the fine arts programs within our many extraordinary schools. Please help me welcome to the podium, Ms. Ali Rai.
Thank you. Good evening, President Pantera, members of the board, Dr. Corson, cabinet, and guests. It is a highlight of our year to present the 2026 Permanent Art Collection Purchase Awards. These selections began earlier this spring during our annual Sights and Sounds Fine Arts Festival held on March 7th at Shadow Mountain High School. This event showcases thousands of pieces of student work, and from that incredible display, a small group of works is selected for the highest honor our district bestows upon student artists, the Purchase Award. By purchasing these pieces, the district ensures they are professionally framed and added to our permanent collection. This collection has grown for decades, serves a special purpose. These pieces are rotated through the governing board room for 3 years and then displayed throughout the district administrative center as a lasting testament to the creativity and excellence of our students. Tonight, we aren't just celebrating the final product you see before you. We are celebrating a journey of excellence. In Paradise Valley, we believe that excellence is not a destination, but a continuous process of growth. For these students, that journey begins in our classrooms with a blank canvas or a lump of clay. It was fueled by the courage to take risks, the discipline to refine their technique, and the resilience to learn from mistakes. This journey is made possible by our dedicated art educators who guide our students to find their unique voices and by the families who support their creative passions at home. These awards represent the pinnacle of that journey where talent meets hard work and academic dedication. As I call your name, please come forward with your family or teacher to be recognized by the board. We're going to start with elementary school awardees. Kenzie Lohan. And she is first grade from Indian Bend Elementary School. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Leilani Valenzuela. Sorry. She is third grade from Cactus View Elementary. Thank you. Next is Lilith Marino, fifth grade, Indian Bend Elementary. Thank you. Next, we have our middle school awardees. Our middle school selections represent a high level of technical growth and personal voice. Our first one is Anya Upaday from 8th grade Desert Shadows Middle School. Thank you. Next. Next, we have Brooklyn Paltizki, 8th grade, Desert Shadows Middle School. Teacher want to come up? No? Next is Layla Portugal from 8th grade Desert Shadows Middle School. She is not here tonight, but her work will be presented by her classmates. Next is Ronika Sadari, 8th grade, Sunrise Middle School. And she is attending PV next year. Thank you. Finally, we recognize our high school artists. These students have achieved a level of mastery that often rivals professional work. As well as some of them also received the Art Seal by completing at least 4 art courses and 80 hours extracurricular activities. First, we have Elson Palomba, 10th grade, Horizon High School. Thank you. Up next is Kaylin Miller, 11th grade, Shadow Mountain High School. Teacher's coming too. Thank you. Our next student is Ruta Lee, 12th grade, Pinnacle High School. Our last piece is from Katarina Melnick, 12th grade, Pinnacle High School, presented by her teacher, Kelsey Greenland. Katarina is also an Art Seal recipient for this year, as well as she is part of the Prestige Visions program, where she will have her show at the Smoka Museum in Scottsdale. Students, your work will now join the halls of this district for years to come, inspiring future generations of students and visitors to begin their own journey of excellence. We want to thank the art teachers and parents and principals who have nurtured this talent. Thank you.
And that, President Pantera, concludes this evening's awards and recognitions.
Next on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Corson.
Well, thank you, President Pantera. In PV schools, we engage, inspire, and nurture students through high-quality instruction, meaningful educational opportunities, and dynamic learning experiences. One of those opportunities is our Developing Authentic Academics Through Purposeful Scholarship Program. DAPS is an honors-level humanities program designed to exceed district and state curriculum requirements while challenging advanced students. Those enrolled in the program have many opportunities to deepen their learning, pursue their interests, and prepare for a variety of post-secondary pathways. I would also like to congratulate our Shadow Mountain seniors who presented their DAPS Stone Passion projects last week. These impressive students have spent the past 4 years developing their ideas and skills, and they took center stage to present their projects with pride, professionalism, and a strong sense of accomplishment. Best of luck to these seniors as they prepare for graduation and the bright futures ahead of them. Well, as many have noted tonight, April serves as a significant month of celebration for our district. We recently observed Administrative Professionals Day on April 22nd, and this week we are honoring the dedicated volunteers who sustain our school system through Public School Volunteer Week. Additionally, we look forward to celebrating Bus Driver Appreciation Day on April 28th. To our bus drivers, thank you for your steadfast commitment to our students and your excellent rodeo skills. And to our administrative professionals, we appreciate the vital role you play in ensuring our organization operates seamlessly. And to our volunteers, thank you for contributing to your time and talents to the success of all students in PV schools. I especially want to thank our United Parent Council, who work continuously to support our schools and our district. To our over 250 Volunteers in Paradise, or Volunteers Make Paradise, President Pantera, for dedicating over 12,000 hours of service to our children, and to our PTAs, PTOs, and booster groups for your continued commitment to our schools and communities. Well, PV Schools takes immense pride in our long-standing tradition of cultivating leadership from within and maximizing the exceptional talent of our employees. For more than 40 years, our Administrative Internship Management Training Program, better known as AIM, has been the cornerstone of this effort, dedicated to identifying, developing, and nurturing the next generation of visionary leaders. Each year, we select a distinguished group of teacher leaders, providing them with the immersive experiences and professional mentorship necessary to serve as administrators in our district. Tonight, we're honored to recognize this year's AIM class. I ask all AIM graduates, please stand so we may celebrate your commitment. Well, thank you, AIM candidates. You know, history has shown that the individuals standing before you tonight will be the faces leading our schools and shaping the future of our district for years to come. Thank you so much. And finally, don't forget to check your inbox. Every spring, PV Schools sends out a satisfaction survey to better understand how parents and guardians perceive their child's school. Your feedback on areas such as academic support, communication, and school climate is invaluable in helping us continue to improve and empower every learner for a lifetime of success. The survey link was sent to our parent and guardian emails through addresses and can be found in your Parent Square feed. We'll be accepting feedback through the survey until August 30th. And President Pantera, this concludes my comments for this evening.
No, thank you, Dr. Corson. Next on the agenda is items for approval G1, consideration and approval of administrative personnel employment actions. Dr. Holmes.
Mr. President, members of the board, Seth Butte is currently the Strategic Planning Director for the Arizona Institute for Education and the Economy. Prior to that, he was the principal at the Phoenix Coding Academy. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Michigan, a post-baccalaureate degree in education from Rio Salado, and a Master of Arts in Educational Leadership from ASU. Go Devils. If Thank you. If approved, he will receive salary and benefits in accordance with the PVP bargaining agreement, and we recommend you approve Mr. Butte to be the next principal at Shea Middle School.
May I have a motion to approve Seth, how do you say the last name?
Butte.
Butte, for the position of principal of Shea Middle School as presented.
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Mr. Butte.
Now, where is Mr. Butte? Would you like to introduce anybody that came with you today? Got a family or friends? All the different places at the same time. Oh, okay, I hear you. Well, welcome aboard.
And I think you're off to get your daughter, right? Like he has to go. We just made it.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Dr. Chris Osmussen is currently the Director of Student Services Secondary. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science, Master of Arts degree in Educational Administration from the University of Phoenix, and Doctorate in Educational Leadership from NAU. If approved, you'll receive salary and benefits consistent with the Cabinet Bargaining Agreement, and we recommend you approve Dr. Asmussen to be the next Assistant Superintendent of Leadership Secondary.
May I have a motion to approve Dr. Chris Asmussen for the position of Assistant Superintendent of Leadership Secondary as presented?
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Dr. Osmussen.
Do you have anybody you'd like to introduce and share with us?
I do. My biggest champion, my wife, Terry.
Excellent. Next on the agenda is items for approval G2, consideration and approval of proposed calendar recommendations for school years 2027-28, 2028-29, 2029-30, and 2030-31. Dr. Lindsay?
Good evening, President Pantera, members of the governing board, Dr. Corson, cabinet, and guests. Tonight before you is a recommendation for your consideration and possible approval of the proposed school calendars for the 2027-2028 through 2030-31 school years. At the April 9th meeting, I presented a first read outlining the calendar committee's process and outcomes. 3 options were shared with the community, and option 2 emerged as the recommended choice. This option includes a full week fall break after the first quarter, a full week Thanksgiving break, and a full week spring break in the second week of March, with a consistent end to the school year in late May. Due to the placement of midweek holidays, there is an exception with the 29-30 school calendar, which will follow a traditional 3-day Thanksgiving schedule to honor all of the other religious holidays. Based on stakeholder input and overall considerations, the calendar committee recommends option 2, and cabinet supports this recommendation for your consideration and possible approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
May I have a motion to approve the proposed calendar recommendations for school years 2027-28, 2028-29, 2029-30, and 2030-31 as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen.
Yes. I just wanted to thank the committee members. This is very difficult to you can't please everybody, and so I just wanted to say thank you to the committee members. And although we gave our comments last time, and I still wanted us to start a little later so that we don't have that early start. But I know that the committee did everything that they could to look at all the options. So thank you for that.
Mrs. Wani.
I just want to say yay for fall break. Thank you.
Any
I mean,
other comment?
if we're saying yay for things, yay for Thanksgiving break.
I did notice they left off my birthday again, but okay, don't worry about it. It's okay. Any other comments?
Well, I was just going to comment they left off your birthday, but, it's okay.
With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is items for approval G3, consideration and approval of changes and/or additions to the bargaining agreements with PVEA, PVSEA, ESS, PVP, COA, and Cabinet for 2026-2027. Dr. Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to offer for your consideration approval of the bargaining agreements as you've described. All changes are noted throughout the agreements in yellow and/or in the memorandums of agreement at the end of each bargaining agreement. I'd also offer 2 amendments, both for the ESP bargaining agreement. Number 1, on page 22 in the transfer process, the position paraeducator is highlighted and struck twice. The intent was to change that to instructional assistant. So we would add that in. Number 2, on page 46, under reimbursement procedures, section D was inadvertently struck out. We would keep that language. And if you're searching for a motion, I might suggest the approval item with the amendments as offered by Dr. Holmes. Just because I've seen how we worked through that in the past.
May I have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the bargaining agreements with PVEA, PVSEA, ESS, PVP, COA, and Cabinet with amendments presented by Dr. Holmes for 2026-2027 as presented?
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Wait a minute. Thank you, Dr. Corson. We have blue cards, and they're first. So first, we have 2 blue cards for this. One is the first one, Sean Webster, and the second will be from Heather Schmidt. Please come up. And I think they have, 3 minutes? Yeah, 3 minutes.
Good evening, President Pantera, members of the governing board, Dr. Corson, cabinet, and guests. My name is Sean Webster, and I'm the president of PVSEA. Tonight, I want to take this opportunity to thank my incredible bargaining team who dedicated their time and experience throughout this entire bargaining season. I'd also like to thank Dr. Martin and her team for their collaboration with us this year. While this was a difficult year requiring hard decisions, I'd like to highlight several outcomes that will significantly benefit our group. This year, we were able to raise tuition reimbursement to $2,500, which will cover full-time tuition at any Maricopa Community College, which means our employees can earn a degree and graduate debt-free. We also approved a time buyback scale, which now approves employees who have dedicated time to our district and did not use all of their allocated time off to no longer just leave the district without getting a payout for that time. I'd also like to thank the district for absorbing the insurance cost increase this year, ensuring that our rates did not go up for our employees. I'm happy to share that we have officially ratified this year's bargaining agreement, and I respectfully ask that you vote yes to approve this bargaining agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Schmidt.
Good evening, President Pantera, Dr. Corson, Governing Board and Cabinet. My name is Heather Schmidt, and I'm proud to serve as the president of the Paradise Valley Education Association. In my second year as PVEA president and chair of the Certified Bargaining Team, let me tell you, we had a lot more fun last year. But I am confident that the work we did is the best outcome we could have found. As you review the draft version of the 26-27 Certified Bargaining Agreement, I am pleased to share that the members of PVEA ratified our agreement with a vote of 96.2% yes votes, an even higher percentage compared to last year's historic passage rate. I'd like to thank the members of the PVEA bargaining team, Josh Atkins, Chrissy Bonifaci Hughes, Chris Howard, Misty Hoyt, Dr. Karen Hudson, and Stacia Stoffi. The 7 of us, along with the PVEA Executive Board, spent countless hours preparing for and engaging in the process of interest-based negotiations, including a few weekend meetings, countless emails, text messages, and at least 1 box of tissues. We start this process in the fall by surveying the entire certified group, gathering information from across every school and department in PV to ensure that we are bringing the interests of our certified group to the table. I'd also like to thank Dr. Holmes, Mrs. Berrigan, Mr. Dawson, Mr. Hubble, Ms. Jarris, Mr. Dennis, and Dr. Cunningham for the work that they gave at the table. IBN is not always easy, but it allows for open dialogue, creative solutions, and a focus on common ground. This year, that was finding a solution to a budget deficit that impacted every one of us employed by PV schools. This year, we were required to be far more creative than we have in the past. We started in December with a projected deficit of over $10 million in the M&O budget, but by our 4th bargaining session in March, we had moved in the right direction and we would learn that we would need to cut around $1.5 million from our M&O budget. When cuts have been deemed necessary in the past, there has been a push for those cuts to be taken proportionally across the 3 employee groups of certified ESP and administration. Our portion was nearly $1.2 million. We had choices. We could look at a list of our colleagues and cut 12 to 15 of them. We could raise class sizes. We could reduce our contracted workdays. None of these were ideal, but PVEA did not want to cut positions at that point in the year, as assignments had been given. Because of this, we surveyed PVEA again, being brutally honest about the deficit and looking for their thoughts. To make a very long story short, especially as I look at this clock, we came to an agreement to cut a flat rate across every employee, and then we're able to add a flat rate on top of that based on the Classroom Site Fund, which is a sales tax pot of money that is only able to be used for certificated salaries. For historical context, for at least the last 3 years, Certified has added a flat rate from the CSF to our group's base salaries, and prior to that was used to increase the payout of our performance-based pay. As you vote on all 6 of the agreements before you this evening, I want to thank all of you, our governing board, and my cabinet for the continued partnership between PV schools and PVEA. This is truly a special part of working in PV, and as we begin winding down 26-27 with just 20 days of school left, it is my honor to lead PVEA into the coming school year. 2 seconds left. Woohoo! Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, does any board member wish to make a comment? Nobody? Oh, Dr. Lim?
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for just a little clarity on this. I guess looking at the bargaining agreements, this is the first year looking in depth into bargaining agreements. I guess I'm just need some clarity as to, it looks like all the other bargaining agreements aren't making huge major cuts except for the ESPs having a furlough day added to those. So I guess I just want some clarity as to why we see furlough days in one group, but we see potential raises or additional amounts on other groups. So I guess I'm just trying to understand how we get there when we're in a deficit where we're adding money to certain groups but not to others.
Well, as Ms. Schmidt mentioned, for certified in particular, the Classroom Site Fund is not available to other groups, and that was probably the most significant portion of money that we're able to distribute to employees. So that's just a matter of statute. Other than that, all of the bargaining agreements work individually to determine how they want to get to their proportional share of the reduction required to balance the budget, the M&O budget specifically, and so they all arrive at that differently.
Okay, I guess I've got 2 questions there. I think the first one is for the certified. So I know it's been moved to site fund, and I know that while we have it, it's not something that's guaranteed that we could have in the long run. So if for some reason that were a fund to go away, what would be the contingency plan given that we've put a good amount of their salary onto the site fund the last few years?
I honestly don't want to contemplate that because that would be a lot of money.
Okay.
That's that's got to be or more, 1,000 per teacher total between PVP and the amount of dollars that we put into the base is almost 9,000 to the best of my knowledge in this moment.
Okay. I guess then kind of thinking about that more sustainably, because that is literally what I do for a living, maybe not in the money space, but in other spaces, like just thinking about what the long-term sustainability plan for that is if we do have a legislator that keeps going the opposite direction from public education, that if we hit issues with that, like just that we start to think of what that contingency plan is because I don't want to see our certified have to take a pay cut because suddenly
No,
that.
they're very aware of that. They've actually seen it go down in the past. That actually has happened. And we have struck a balance recently in between adding money to the base and the rest of it comes in the form of their performance-based pay plan. And actually more than half of it is in that addendum that they receive every year. So they're all very aware that that's connected to state statute and can change from year to year.
Okay. And then I think my other question is kind of looking at the administrators one. I know some of our administrators aren't taking any additional money, but we do have some specific administrators that are getting increased in funds. So just kind of how, when they're supposed to be cutting money, how are we adding money? I just would like to understand this a bit better.
That's actually part of the annual budget, and more specifically, it's we actually have a system for adjusting compensation for employees in all of our employee groups on a 3 to 4 year rotation.
Okay. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, these might be on that rotation?
They are. That's
year.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so does this apply to all categories, certified ESPs, all the way through administrators?
It does. I mean, the manner in which it is slightly different, but yes.
Okay. I think I have another one, but let me see if anyone else has comments first.
Anyone else have a comment they'd like to make? Mrs. Greenberg.
Sorry. No, I just want to thank everybody. Bargaining is never, well, sometimes it's fun.
It's always
but
fun.
It's always fun.
It is always fun. I know where
but-
you were going with that.
Yeah, I know you did, Dr. Holmes. But it can be arduous. So, and it's difficult when the request is we need to cut. And unfortunately, having sat here for a long time and having looked at the budgets that come down from the legislature, we've tended to be in that situation more often than not, particularly since 2008. So I just want to thank everybody. And obviously, as we just learned, each group looked at what, the pros and cons for themselves. And this wasn't a top-down decision or anything like that. And I appreciate that we do that in PV and that we partner with all of our employees to make it work for them, even when on this, it doesn't look like it's working because it's a cut. But the fact that we started the budget process where we did, which isn't, it's nothing we like, but it's nothing new for us. I mean, we tend to be there again because of the budgets we get, what we get from the legislature. But we're here, and the fact that we managed to get here, I just want to thank everybody for their role in that.
Anyone else?
Okay. So I think I formulated my last question. So looking at the ESP bargaining agreement, they're going to have to furlough a day in this upcoming year. Can we get some clarity on when that furlough day is going to happen, whether it's going to be the day before school starts or the day after school starts, or what work day are they going to be furloughing?
It's technically not a furlough. It's actually a reduction in a contract day. Specifically, it's going to be one of the paid holidays that is not required by law in November. I believe it's the Friday after Thanksgiving is the day that group worked with district to identify.
Okay, I guess then for me, because when we label it a furlough day, it really is typically a work day, so we'd expect that to fall on a work day. So like the language saying that it's a furlough, it is technically a different type of day than a furlough day. So for me, the bargaining language is actually just not the right term. So Furlough typically, at least in our industry, refers to a workday, not a non-workday.
I agree with you about that, but just to clarify, we did not use the word furlough day.
Okay.
We were very specific about a reduction in a contract day.
Okay, I guess I didn't read it correctly in that case, but I'll look at it again.
Okay.
But, okay, great.
Mrs. Christensen?
Yes. So I know this process isn't ever easy, and I just want to thank everybody that was involved. One of my main goals here is to always get as much dollars in the classroom, including for teacher salaries, as possible. I know that I'm very picky about other things on fiscal responsibility, but this is why when we have major decisions on things that are tough, we still have a lot of schools that are not up to par in enrollment. And I know we're going to start making conversations again on consolidation and things like that. But I just implore us to continue to look at ways to cut costs so that we can put more dollars in the classroom for our students and for our teachers. And I know we always say that we do a good job with that, but it's still a little bit frustrating to see things like out-of-state travel and things like that when we really we have declining enrollment, which means declining revenue, and we need to remain strong and look at ways to cut as far away from the classroom as possible. And I think we can do it because I see the vouchers come through, and there's other things that do come out of M&O. I do understand there's different buckets, and we have a lot that can only be done with bonds, et cetera. That is not teacher salary. So I'm frustrated at that. We can't do better for our teachers and our students, but I do understand part of it is us up here making decisions, and I do understand, there were some decisions that happened. So I just implore the district, meaning all of us as a whole, to really start looking seriously down the road, because if enrollment continues to decline, it's not going to get any easier. So but thank you for doing the best that you can with the numbers that we have. But so.
Thank you, Board Member Christensen.
Mrs. Wani?
This might be a question for Mrs. Berrigan. Could you just remind me, where are we as a state per pupil funding in relation to the rest of the country?
Do you have the sheet I gave you earlier, Dr. Holmes? I do. Hold, please. They're around 6,200 or so per pupil, and that puts us, I think we're in 48th or 49th. And we would need about double that to get us to the average in the U.S. The average in the U.S. is about $12,000. And just as a reminder, our administrative costs are at 7.4% in comparison to our peer districts. Our next closest one, I believe, is 8.1%. So we, as a whole, in this district, have done a good job of ensuring most of our funding is going to classrooms. The least amount of possible is going to administration, and sometimes there's really only so much you can cut in admin. But compared to our peer average, we spend $114 less per pupil in administrative costs. Sorry, that was more than what you asked for.
No, okay. Thank you. And putting it in context is just helpful. And I think it's just important to note, yes, absolutely, this board plays a very critical role in prioritizing the funds that we have. At the end of the day, we have to use the funds that we have. And I think that from my perspective, that is the single greatest limiting factor to increasing teacher salary. And so I will continue to advocate at the state level for increased teacher pay, but that means we need to increase our per pupil funding, period, end of story. And so anybody that wants our teachers to have an increase in salary, I implore you to do that as well. So.
Thank you. Mrs. Christensen?
Yes. So, well, I agree with a lot of what you said. I will remind that more than half the state budget goes to education, and there are ways to cut and live within our means. We're very fortunate here in Paradise Valley because we do pass a lot of bonds and overrides, and that's over and above what the state gives us to do our budget. Yes, no bonds can't go to teacher salaries, but I'm saying as a whole. And so from a business perspective, and I know that people don't get upset when I say this is a business, but we do have revenues, we have expenses, we have to manage people. And if we are putting people first, teachers and students, we really have to take a better look at the budget. And just saying that the other states have larger per pupil. We're in Arizona, and everybody in Arizona is dealt similar cards, except we are very fortunate here in Scottsdale Unified. We have the bonds that we pass here, and which also increases taxes on people that are also suffering. So I just want to remind us that.
Could we get back down just talking about the bargaining teams we're talking about voting on?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President Pantera, but we're talking about bargaining and finances, and putting it back to getting more dollars for teachers. It's important for us to look at all the finances.
I want to encourage you. I actually looked at this metric a little bit differently because a lot of times we look at per pupil, we look at the percentages, and I try to visualize it a little bit differently. If you look at the difference in from where we're at in the state on a per pupil basis, next time you're walking down a classroom or a hallway in a school and you pass by a classroom and it's full of kids, full of students, we are doing better by about $10,000 a class in terms of our spending on administration, so that is money that is effectively, going back into the classroom.
I don't see a hand up. Okay, there you go. Mrs. Greenberg.
Well, considering you took it back to something else, I'm not sure this is the best, but using Mrs. Christensen's reasoning, we can only do what we can do based on what we get from the legislature. I would point out, yes, while education is probably the biggest part of the state budget, there is $1 billion of that is going to ESA holders that isn't necessarily going to public education. And so again, they're making a choice, and we have to respond to that in our agreements and our budgets. And, well, no, okay, that goes off topic. So.
Thank you. Dr. Lim.
I will happily bring it back to topic. So I just want to clarify. So the language and the reason I bring up the issue back to the furlough days is that is the communication that went out to the ESPs, that it was going to be a furlough day. And while the language in the bargaining agreement is different, the representation that went out to ESPs was the use of furlough days. So I just want to be clear that we are communicating to our staff correctly when we're communicating to them so that they understand what they are agreeing through this process. And my understanding with agreeing to a furlough day is they would be agreeing to one of their work days, not one of their contract days. And while this is saying their contract days, we've represented to them that it would be one of their work days. So they should be expecting us to follow the 2023-2024 plan for furlough days, or going all the back to 2028 when they had to do 3 furlough days in the huge budget cuts there, where those also fall on work days. So while this bargaining agreement says the language that allows us to do the holiday, the non-required holiday, the language that went out to our ESPs and those staff members was a furlough day, and that is what they agreed to. So I have a hard time standing behind that bargaining agreement when community members are reaching out about this agreement, saying we're concerned about giving up one of our paid contract days when it should be a furlough work day. There's no question there, it's just a comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Mrs. Christensen.
Yes. So I just wanted to comment on the ESA point. When somebody leaves our district, regardless of whether they go to another public school or not, that funding goes away. And there's a portion, we get federal, we get state, and so I'm going to use even numbers, so we'll say 15,000 for a student that is in our district, when somebody uses an empowerment scholarship account, it's a fraction of that. It's not the whole. So that is a lie that people are saying that the ESAs are defunding the schools. We need to do a better job of keeping students here. We have all these great programs, and that's the way we win. We make sure that students know that we have better options than our competitors, and that's how we bring it back. We increase revenue by bringing students back to the district, but blaming ESAs is not the reason why we are losing revenue.
Any more comments regarding the bargaining agreements that we're presented with here right now?
I do have one clarifying question.
Dr. Lim.
Dr. Holmes, I know you said on 46 we were returning D procedures, but I know C other reimbursement was cut as well. Are
That's
we
correct.
returning that, or are we going to continue to have that removed?
That section is no longer relevant.
Okay.
There was a time when people would pay to take the test after we hired them, and then we would reimburse them. We actually no longer hire people unless they have taken that test. So the section's no longer relevant.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarity.
Any other comments, questions? Correct. I'd just like to say then that I've been on bargaining. And even when I was on bargaining, it was good times that were in our district, and still it's a very difficult process. But it's a process I'm honored to be part of, and I will honor that process and what these different groups have agreed to. I'm very happy that we've got this portion about the ESPs can get community college credits, right? You can go get further.
It's
higher,
professional development.
That's
It's
it.
reimbursement, yeah.
Yeah, reimbursement to higher education, to get more out in their life. I did a question for, I think, Dr. Berrigan. On this 1 day less that they're working, the 1 day less, I mean, what is the total cost on that? What is that?
It's about 40,000.
How much?
240,000.
So $230,000, $240,000 for that. Okay. I just was curious about what that number would be. I am very glad that we're not talking about cutting jobs. You know, it's terrible to lose a day, but to lose your whole job, well, that's a lot worse. It's a lot of days you're cut that way, and I'm glad we're not doing that. And again, for all the different groups and all the work you do, I'm very happy with your efforts in that regard. Seeing no more comments or questions, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those.
No. I would like to motion to separate the bargaining agreements out to separate votes.
There's a motion on the floor. Please state your amendment.
I would like to amend the motion to separate the bargaining agreements out into the individual bargaining agreements and vote by bargaining agreement.
Now you mean each separate one?
Vote for each bargaining agreement
Okay.
separately.
Okay.
I second.
There is a motion on the floor, please, and you state it. Is there a second to this motion?
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to amend the motion. So we have a discussion now on the amendment only, just on the amendment, whether to separate or not separate. Okay, any discussion on it?
I have a question.
Yes.
If one of these bargaining agreements did not pass, what happens? Could you just talk us through what would happen?
Well, we've prepared to send employee contracts out tomorrow pending board approval. So we would not send employee contracts out to that bargaining group. That's correct. And we would, I would anticipate that, the next governing board meeting is May 14th. So at minimum, the next time at which we could send out contracts would be May 15th.
Any more comments or questions about Mrs. Christensen?
Yeah, hold on. it's kind of answering your question. This has happened in the past, and we've made exceptions to speed up the process because I know it just in the last 4 years, we've not accepted, and they went back to the,
That was going to be my next question.
yes, they went back to the table, and yeah.
So the group would reconvene potentially if.
Correct.
And renegotiate.
Depending on what the matter is, yes.
Any other comments or questions regarding this? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
I couldn't, is it 3-2? All right, so the amendment fails 3-2. Coming back to the original motion as presented, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
That was 4-1, right? Okay. So the motion passes 4 ayes and 1 nay. Next on the agenda is items for approval G4. Consideration and approval of changes and/or additions to the contracts for the continuing and/or probationary certified teachers, ESP, ESS, ESPN exempt, principals, and administration for 2026-2027. No blue cards on this, Dr. Holmes.
Mr. President, members of the board, recommend your approval of the contracts as stated. There are changes to dates and contingency language, otherwise the language is the same.
May I have a motion to approve the changes and/or additions to the contracts for continuing probation, certified teachers, ESPs, ESS, ESP exempt, principals, and administration for 2026-2027 as presented.
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion, any abstentions?
Abstention.
Motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Next on the agenda is items for approval, G5, acceptance of gifts and donations. At this time, I would like to thank all of our donors and call out a few of our generous donors. There's a few here. For example, because this is the stuff, we're talking about volunteerism, this is, you're volunteering your money, so it's the same kind of thing, and we're very thankful for it all. At Campobello Elementary School, La Casa de Cristo gave a total of $1,613 for incentive folders, food, etc. See, Desert Shadows Elementary School, their donors choose, they had $622 donations. And at James Lee Sun Kids, donors choose again, that was a total of $643. That's regarding playground items there. What else we got? At Perrys Valley Unified the special education for Perrys Valley Unified School District, Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation donated $2,000 regarding nutrition access and education for a Connections program. That's pretty cool. Sonoran Sky Elementary PTO donated to Sonoran Sky $675. That's to help with substitutes, getting teacher substitutes. And then one more. Whispering Winds Academy, donors choose again. These were items from Mrs. Zhou's classroom. $2,451.27. Did I say that name right? I'm looking, maybe I didn't say her name right. Anyways, we're very thankful for all these donations, and there are many more here, because that's, again, some of the stuff that keeps us going. May I have a motion to accept gifts and donations as presented?
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I heard you. Okay. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is call to the public. Please turn your attention to the video monitors for the next section.
Call to the public is about to convene. This portion of today's meeting allows the public the opportunity to address the governing board. Although state law does not require that the governing board hold a call to the public, the Paradise Valley Unified School District and its board have chosen to do so because we believe it's important to hear about concerns and issues from our community. While call to the public is not designed to be a discussion, the board is here to listen. Due to Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot respond to, discuss, or take any action on items brought up during this time. However, staff members may be directed to get back to you and address individual concerns. As a reminder, the point of this and every board meeting is to accomplish the business at hand, and to be able to do so in an open and collaborative way. All in attendance are expected to observe meeting rules, as well as rules of politeness and decorum, so that we may serve as an example to our students that issues can be discussed in a respectful and civil manner.
Tonight, we have one person who has submitted a comment card prior to the start of the meeting. That speaker will have 3 minutes for remarks. As a reminder, we please ask you to direct your comments to the board. Please state your first and last name when you come to the podium. And our first speaker is, and our only speaker, Kira Kuo.
Hello. You're all familiar with me. This is my 4th time. Same issues. I'm here because Superintendent recently stated in writing that all documents have been provided to me and that the matter is closed. That statement is not true. I have not received the February 17th, April 2nd investigations, witness or staff statements, nurse notes, or internal communications. I have requested repeatedly. None of these records have been provided, yet the superintendent has declared this matter closed. The gravity of this situation was proven today. My son just completed a recorded forensic interview with law enforcement. While this board remained silent, my child had to endure the clinical rigors of a police interview because this district failed to handle his safety with transparency. Martha Maynard explicitly told me she filed a report with law enforcement regarding the April 2nd incident. I personally visited the police station and was told no such report exists. This indicates that this administration either lied to a parent or failed in their legal duty. April 2nd is the second time mandatory reporting duty failed at every level. Martha stated she contacted HR. If that is accurate, then HR was aware. My emails included this board, so you are also aware. Yet no one ensured required forms were provided, a safety plan was implemented. In fact, due to the lack of a safety plan, my son was placed in a room with his alleged assailant. I was told to accept an investigator who is the principal supervisor. This is not neutral. This district has demonstrated it knows how to use a neutral third-party investigator. It did so for former Superintendent Cummings for far less serious concerns. My child deserves that same standard of fairness. I am again requesting a neutral third-party investigator consistent with the standards used for other administrators. 2, immediate production of all records, including investigations, witness statements, nurse notes, and internal communications. 3, administrative action to address the ongoing documentation and safety failures. Again, 4, immediate removal of Martha Maynard. She is continuing to be a risk and a hazard and a liability for the district. Several of you campaign on transparency and child safety. So I must ask, if transparency is a priority, why are basic records still being withheld? If child safety is a priority, why was the poisoning concealed for 40 days? If accountability is a priority, why has there been no action after repeated procedural failures? I'm asking the board, for the 4th time and numerous emails later, to finally uphold the values you committed to: transparency, child safety, and accountability. Thank you. I've had a very long day.
That concludes our calls from the public. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. I1, consideration of job order contract services for PV Schools Strategic Master Capital Planning, SMCP services, 1 GPA contract 23-18P. Dr. Corson.
Thank you, President Pantera, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. I want to begin by grounding tonight's presentation in the purpose and vision of the Superintendent Enrollment Planning Advisory Committee, we call CPAC. At its core, CPAC represents our commitment to taking a thoughtful, inclusive, and forward-looking approach to one of the most important questions we face as a district: how we align our schools, our programs, and our resources to best serve students both today and into the future. We know that enrollment patterns are shifting across our district. Some areas are experiencing decline while others remain stable or growing. And we know that our current system was built for a different time. At the same time, community expectations around choice, programming, and student opportunities continue to evolve. These realities require us to move beyond isolated decisions and towards a more comprehensive long-term strategy. While we have engaged in facilities planning in the past, particularly around maintenance, life cycle needs, and capital improvements, what we are bringing forward tonight is different. This is not simply about identifying when a roof needs to be replaced or when a building requires repair. This is about understanding how our facilities, enrollment patterns, and academic programming intersect, and how we intentionally align those elements to support student success. That is the purpose of this work. A partnership with Grace Design Studio is intended to help us move from a traditional facilities plan to a comprehensive master capital plan that is grounded in both data and community voice. This process begins with a deep analysis of current conditions, including enrollment projections, facility capacity and utilization, building conditions, and how programs are currently distributed across the district. Importantly, it looks not just at individual schools, but how the system functions as a whole. One of the key components of this work is identifying patterns and misalignments, where we may have underutilized space in one area and overcrowding in another, or where programs may not be aligned with student demand or community interest. This allows us to move beyond assumptions and into a shared data-informed understanding of our current reality. From there, Grace Design will develop a series of modeled scenarios. These scenarios are critical. They provide us with the multiple pathways forward, whether that involves boundary adjustments, program relocation or expansion, repurposing of facilities, or potential consolidation. Each scenario includes clear implications, trade-offs, and impacts, allowing us to fully understand the consequences of decisions before they are made. Another important element is the integration of programmatic planning into this work. This is not just about buildings, it is about how we create and expand opportunities for students. That includes examining where and how we offer specialized programs, choice options, and pathways that align with student interests and future readiness. Equally important is the role of community engagement throughout the process. There will be structured opportunities for input from families, staff, students, and community members, ensuring that the outcomes reflect not only data, but also the values and priorities of those we serve. In addition, Grace Design brings experience from other districts, providing comparative insights and best practices that help inform our approach and strengthen the quality of the work. This process will ultimately result in more than a report. It will provide short-term and long-term recommendations, along with a clear framework and metrics for decision-making. It gives us a roadmap, one that allows us to make thoughtful, aligned decisions over time, rather than reacting to challenges as they arise. I also want to acknowledge directly that this represents a significant financial investment, funded through bond dollars. That's a fair and important consideration for us as a district and for this governing board. The value of this work is in the clarity it provides, a comprehensive understanding of our system, a set of actionable options, and a transparent process for decision-making that we can stand behind as a district. Ultimately, this work is essential to the success of our CPAC committee. It ensures that the committee is not operating from incomplete information or isolated perspectives, but from a comprehensive, objective analysis of our system. It provides a foundation for meaningful dialogue, thoughtful prioritization, and recommendations that are aligned to a long-term vision for PV schools. This is about planning not just for the next year or two, but for the next decade and beyond, and doing so in a way that is strategic, transparent, and centered on students. For clarification, this agenda item makes mention in its title that the governing board is considering and possibly approving contracted services, but the governing board is only discussing this item tonight, and we'll bring this item forward at a future meeting for possible action. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Jill Berrigan to introduce Grace Design Studio and our presenter for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Corson, and President Pantera, and board members. I have very little to add to Dr. Corson's excellent and comprehensive introduction of what we will hear in addition to our presentation from Sarvanan with Grace Design. I will just remind folks that Grace Design is who we have used in our process for architectural services with Indian Bend, and I have found that to be the work that they put into that incredibly comprehensive, incredibly community-centered, incredibly student-focused, and to be able to have the potential for that opportunity in our future thinking for all of our schools to some degree within the district, I think is intriguing to me. So without further ado, I will let Sarvanan begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. President Pantera, members of the governing board, Dr. Corson, cabinet, community members, thank you again for having me back and have an opportunity to engage in a discussion, this important conversation about long-term strategic thinking. Grace Design Studios, thank you, Ms. Berrigan, for that acknowledgement and appreciate that. We are an architectural design company, and we've obviously been deeply involved with communities such as yourselves in developing solutions that are deeply grounded in your community's needs. But one of the other things that we do, which is a significant part of our practice, is to engage in long-term strategic capital planning. And the confusing challenge sometimes with capital planning is the word capital itself. And many parts of that confusion stems from the tangible assets component of capital. So we consider capital as not just tangible assets, but the intangible assets component of it. It is understanding that capital involves the physical buildings that you see, but it's also people, it's practices, it's programs you create, it's professional development. These are all assets that you just today have considered a lot of investments towards. So it would be remiss on us to think about capital through the traditional lens. And so our approach to capital planning has been comprehensive in engaging with communities such as yourselves. And the team that we bring to the table is reflective of this reality. I am an accredited learning environment planner, which is basically a euphemism to say I engage with a lot of communities to help them give shape to a vision and develop action around that vision that creates sustainable, long-term possibility in putting into action an educational plan, an overall educational plan. And our team is surrounded by several others who are deeply embedded in public education in Arizona, and folks who have worked with school districts for a long time through the facilities angle to understand the impact of long-term strategic thinking on facilities. So this group is truly committed to doing this type of work, and we have been doing this type of strategic planning across not just Arizona, but across the country. So from a strategic capital planning perspective, one of the biggest things we try to focus on is the why. In districts and K-12 systems, there are multiple efforts usually underway that include considerations about capacity and enrollment, creating facility capital plans internally, thinking about programming, thinking about professional development, thinking about M&O expenditure, sustainability plans, and all manners of activities. A strategic capital plan essentially pulls all of those efforts into alignment towards a common goal. And that goal can be influenced by multiple stressors. There are incredible pressures on K-12 systems. And that's been talked about ad nauseum in several of your board meetings. There's policy pressures, there's birth rate issues, and parents who vote with choice. And so how do we prepare for that future? And how do we think about, more importantly, the impact of those decisions that you make on facilities, and that is how we approach capital planning. And you have seen this graphic before. This sort of illustrates this idea that capital is more than place. It's people, it's pedagogies, it's practices, and the interplay of those. So our approach, and here's sort of a high-level summary of it. It's a simpler hammock of the different steps we undertake, and it is deeply community-focused. The single biggest reason for that is community engagement does two things. It gives you a broader vision into what your community is thinking, and also allows you the opportunity to connect the dots with what you are planning as stewards of your community. And so what that does is it gives us the opportunity to develop key performance indicators, objective key results, and other manners of qualitative items that we can then use as a lens to assess your facilities. This is in addition to what you would traditionally consider a building conditions assessment, which is a quantitative study of the actual conditions of the different components that you see. So there's the qualitative component and then the quantitative component. And those two things, in addition to the data that you already have as a district, meeting with your stakeholders, allows us to be able to create a path and have a campus-specific plan. So you will have opportunities to think about specific impacts to campuses, and the action around it might include some of the measures you've already taken, but there may be other opportunities to think about implementation of a certain program that could be an attractive option for parents to bring students into the schools. And so what is the impact of that on the facilities? Does that take a renovation angle? Does that take a replacement angle? Does that take an addition angle? So those are the kinds of action items that would come out of a strategic plan. So here's sort of a detailed look at how the process workflow happens. And if we were to be fortunate to work with you, we would set up community meetings, and our teams, highly experienced in facilitating conversations, would develop meetings where we would engage in surveys, contemporaneous visioning, and using group discussions to develop key metrics. And those metrics would become rubrics that we would assess facilities on. And our teams would at the same time look at the data you have, develop a roadmap, a schedule to walk all your facilities, and develop a detailed component by component look at your building systems, which include flooring, ceiling, roofing, anything that you include in a building. And these are at a very detailed level, and they aggregate to entire buildings, into sites, into an entire district. And what that does is it gives you an objective snapshot of the conditions of your facilities, the adequacy of your facilities to support current programming, and potentially suitability of your facilities to support future innovative programming that become attractors for families. So those sorts of ideas come together into recommendations and a capital plan that sometimes can span 10 to 15 years, and also identify possible funding sources and timing of those funding asks so you can begin to realize this plan into action. So I did mention several words, so sort of a description of those. You have a packet in front of you. I'm sure you've read those. But the four major data streams we look at are capacity and demographics, conditions, building conditions. We also look at adequacy of your facilities to support current programming. And one of the most important ones we look at is suitability. And the difference between adequacy and suitability is time. Adequacy is the ability of your your facilities to support current programming. Suitability is the ability of your facilities to support potential future programming. And that gap can sometimes result in the conditions of your facilities having to adapt through renovations or other types of measures, and that we capture in the capital plan. And the other part of our work involves what we call tiering, meaning how do you weigh each of these data streams? And it's different for every community. Some communities weigh facilities, conditions heavily. some weigh suitability heavily. So it's a matter of conversation with your district, your leadership, and you to see what should weigh in this equation to provide an objective prioritization score. So we develop an individual score for each of those arenas, and then it aggregates to a prioritization score by campus with a specific action item or an action plan developed for that campus. And I'm going to walk you through an example real quick, and I'm going to go through this very fast. It's a lot of data, but it's primarily to provide an overview of how this might operationalize. So we're in the middle of wrapping up a similar strategic capital plan for Peoria Unified School District. This was started in September of 2025, and we've gone through this about 3/4 of the way in. They've already implemented phase 1 of this by consolidating a couple of campuses and reconfiguring their Cactus High School as a 7 through 12 high school with enhanced career-connected programming to better provide attractive options for parents. But the process started in a very similar manner, using their strategic framework and their strategic pillars as basis of conversation. We listened to the community, provided high-level surveys, engaged in group visioning sessions in large groups, collected a lot of information that everybody contributed to, and then broke into smaller group discussions, and developed a bunch of priorities around those ideas. And we've done something very similar with you at Indian Bend, very similar process, but at a larger scale. And what this did was it provided us a series of benchmarks or key performance indicators that are qualitative. And using those, we created rubrics as to how a certain metric that feeds into an adequacy measure. For example, teaching and learning was a strategic pillar, and one of the metrics we studied was classroom technology. So how does classroom technology appear from an adequacy perspective if it were to be exemplary versus inadequate? So we create a rubric that is a scale, and that we walk all your facilities with, and that's exactly what we did there, and developed a summary of benchmarks across all of their facilities. Here's an example from Area 2. And what this does is it gives you an objective snapshot of how a certain facility ranks in terms of adequacy based on the metrics created from community engagement and in conversation with district leaders representing various aspects of the school district's operations. And using that as a objective snapshot, and also looking at other measures such as suitability, and again, going through a very similar process. Here's the list of how all of those schools stacked from a suitability perspective. And also looking at capacity and utilization. And this is one of the challenges that you've articulated even today. There's continuing declining enrollment. So how do we not just address that in the moment symptomatically, but what is the structural solution to that? It's trying to create attractive options for parents to bring their students to PV schools. And what does that look like? What sorts of programming might be attractive? What is the impact of that programming on your facilities? What sorts of investments do you need to make in your staff to be able to innovatively offer those programs? And there's been several examples of that today. All the art in front of me today is a good example of something like that. And so, again, capacity and utilization was another consideration. We looked at it in Peoria, area by area. And here's I know this is a busy slide, but here's sort of a functional look at the capacity across the entire district. The previous one was elementary schools, here's high schools. And sort of an overall summary of where you stack, not just in terms of a maximum capacity, but functional capacity. And functional capacity can be a factor of multiple things. If you have an alternative educational model, the capacity of that environment might be different than in a standard traditional environment. So how do you map that? And that's a programmatic impact. So here's sort of an example of that. And then looking at it by different areas. So you can create an action plan around specific area impacts from a capacity perspective. And lastly, conditions. So we did a complete facility conditions assessment through an international standard process called facility conditions indexing, which essentially looks at the repair cost versus the replacement cost of a component. And there's multiple components in any building, and once all of that aggregates, you get an FCI or an index for that specific building. And if there's multiple buildings on a campus, then that stacks into a facility conditions index for the entire campus. And what that does is it gives you, once again, an objective snapshot of how your facilities rank from a conditions perspective. And here's an example from Peoria of how all of their elementary schools, for example, develop a facility conditions index. Red is obviously bad. So the lighter the color, the newer the facility, typically the FCI is lower. And as facilities age, they tend to go towards poor and critical. So trying to look at it across all of the district portfolio and developing, and again, objective, overarching look at the entire facility conditions index across the district, and obviously summarizing the findings. Now, all of these data streams come together when we think about prioritization. I mentioned earlier, there's a tiering model that we would promote to think about how these data streams should be weighed to your unique condition. And in their specific case, this is how they weighed the different data streams. And what that does is it gives you an objective prioritization score outlay across the entire portfolio. Higher the number, the more priority that specific campus has for action. That action might be different depending on what the situation is. For example, if you have a high growth area that is stressing a campus, and that campus might show a prioritization score that's high, but that may not be a candidate to consolidate, maybe a candidate to add to. And you may have the exact opposite condition, also reflective in some cases where a high prioritization score might be a facility conditions influence or an adequacy or a suitability influence. So it can vary based on what criteria is driving that high prioritization score. But the point of creating a priority score is you can then speak to specifics of each campus and develop a campus-specific dashboard. And here's an example of what a campus-specific dashboard might look like. And one other thing we do is we age these scores over 10 years. So we apply deterioration curves. So it's sort of a do-nothing scenario. If something does not happen immediately, how do those scores age over 10 years? So it gives you, again, a snapshot of how things might look if nothing was done to those priorities that are jumping out of a page. So here's sort of an example of a dashboard. And various types of action planning. Here's an example from Flagstaff Unified, where the primary ask was identifying different types of action items and potentially going to the voters as a bond ask. And if we were to do that in a specific year, what would that model have to be? And inflating that over certain time. So depending on when you pick to act on that, you have an objective snapshot that you can work towards, and that's backed by a specific action plan. So I've said a lot. So the idea here is to work towards a specific action plan across your entire district that you can sustainably act on. And ultimately, that gets packaged in a report that can be utilized by your planning committees in the future, and taking into account changes in demographics, for example, and additional efforts that have been expended in current bond programs or future bond programs, or any state funding that we might uncover as part of this that could be tapped into. And so it's a living document, but it gives you a solid foundation. So that's sort of the overarching outcome of this process.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mrs. Christensen?
One of our responsibilities on a governing board is to look at ways to eliminate waste and expenditures and be fiscally responsible. In our district, we've done a very good job of picking different types of committees. We have state agencies that can help with this type of information as well. We have the Facilities Board, we have ADE. I did do research with your company. It seems like, I think you changed the name. I don't know if there was like some, because there were some other schools listed, so I did reach out to some of my individuals that I know that are elected officials in some of the other districts, and they said that the work is very good, what you do, but it's very expensive. And so I'll use a family example, when you have declining revenue in a family, you don't shop at Nordstrom anymore. You go to like a Target and a Walmart. So I do understand that you are, the best of the best, but I'm having a hard time understanding why we would justify hundreds of thousands of dollars to do a strategic capital master plan, something of that nature. And I know you're going to interrupt me, but let me just finish. I'm almost done. When we, as a district, do a very good job of having committees, and we've done things like this. We've done school closures. We've done other assessments. So, okay, I'm done, Dr. Person.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. This is a significant financial investment. And you can see by the robust nature of the work that Grace Design would do with this study is the synthesis of all of these different data streams that come in to be able to create the kinds of metrics and assessment is almost impossible for us to do that. And so, yes, we have been successful in the past of doing things like school consolidations and programming, but oftentimes that work is done in piecemeal, and it's to address a specific context in that given moment. This is really a future forward plan that will serve us far in the future to be able to connect various data points that, for example, our Superintendent Enrollment Committee couldn't possibly be able to assimilate this kind of amount of data in a meaningful way. And so oftentimes what happens then is that people are left to perceptions or looking at individual data points and trying to make sense of that, when really we want the ability for that group to actually make recommendations and to kind of bog them down, so to speak, in a lot of data analysis is not always the best use of their time. And so, but I do understand the significance of this investment, and we don't take that investment lightly, and that's why we're bringing it tonight as a discussion item, to see if this is the kind of investment that the governing board thinks will serve our district in the future. Certainly I do, otherwise I wouldn't bring that forward. But certainly this is a community discussion with your voice included.
Dr. Lim?
I can follow that one up with a question that I have raised about this. So I know Dr. Davis has done some work, amazing work on our facilities, so they hopefully won't score as bad as Peoria's. They've done an amazing job of making sure our facilities are as maintained as they can with the dollars that we have. Given that he has done a significant amount of this work and really cataloged our things, is that price tag accounting for the amount of work and resources he's going to be providing to you, having done a lot of that groundwork in our facilities maintenance and just observing over time, and he has whole plans on what would be the plan if, something doesn't go wrong at a school, that the maintenance plans for each of those schools. So,
yeah, I want to start by acknowledging that this is a significant investment. There's no two ways about that. And we do get asked to assist in this sort of a manner across the board, and this is not just in Arizona, across the country. As I see the value of connecting the dots in ways that allows you to find efficiencies. And that's one of the challenges we see a lot, is it's not strictly a facilities conditions issue. A simple example of that is a doubly loaded classroom building across a hallway in its best condition may be unsuitable to support career-connected learning. So if we strictly focused on one data stream, and that can be true of any, I'm just picking one. If we were to pick on, for example, utilization, and if we strictly looked at you may have governing board mandated student-to-teacher ratios, classroom ratios. If we strictly looked at that, that might be missing an opportunity to think about alternative forms of engagement, different types of fractional utilization ratios. So that's typically what we encounter in this process, is to find efficiencies and provide clarity that is comprehensive, that connects the dots in ways, and that's a conversation. This is not something that is cookie cutter. It's very unique to every school district. So to answer your question directly, yes, Dr. Davis had shared with us that some schools have already been assessed, and our pricing model includes data entries for those and not walk-in those sites specifically. But we're walking those sites for adequacy and suitability, but the conditions information that you already have will be utilized, and the pricing reflects that.
Mrs. Greenberg?
I probably have some comments, but I do have a question first. I know, towards the end, you presented a slide on the Gilbert plan that you provided. Can you speak to, because I think Gilbert is a little bit more a peer district in this sense to PV in regard to passage of bonds and overrides, which Peoria, as we know, has had a greater difficulty doing, which I think has contributed to their overall issues with facilities. This it looks like 23. So how can you speak to how they have acted on the work you did and what was provided to them?
So the Gilbert Capital Master Plan was pretty heavily facilities focused. So there was some conversations about adequacy and suitability and programming, but their primary focus was facilities. And so they've not been successful passing a bond after that, but they are using override money to be able to address some of the priorities that are emerging as part of it. Another example that is similar to this, but what not on the slide deck, it's much smaller scale, is Maricopa Unified. So we did strategic capital planning for Maricopa Unified, I want to say around the same time, 2023, 24. And a big point of emphasis through community engagement was workforce development and career-connected learning. And that translated to a district-wide survey, and there was quite a bit of resonance around that. And they created a bond program around creating career centers, CTE centers, in their existing high school, and expanding the Career Pathway Academy second high school, but also thinking about career-connected learning from K through 8. So that was instrumental in them being able to pass a bond in Maricopa, which is not one of the easiest places to pass a bond. And they have 2 K through 8 schools that are currently under construction that are career-connected learning based. And so that's a good example of community voice being amplified in real action that has a real direct impact to that community. Maricopa is on the I-11 corridor. And incidentally, we did the same work at Lyon County in Nevada, which is also on the I-11 corridor. And rural county school district, county school district with specific regions, rural, semi-urban. And so career-connected learning, again, was a focus that came through this, but it manifested in very different ways. And their emphasis was significantly on facilities as well, because they had older facilities that had evaporative cooling across the entire district that they wanted to replace. So I've seen this sort of work manifest in different ways. I'm giving you that as an example, as a facilities-focused manifestation, same at Gilbert. But in Maricopa, it was a programming-based evolution that they continue to evolve, and they have a partnership with Fulton College now with their next education workforce model. And that has a real impact on how the facilities are imagined. They're doing renovations in existing facilities, and when the new facilities are creating connected classrooms and career hubs and things of that nature. So I've seen this manifest in multiple ways.
President Pantera, if I may add to that too, that's part of what is, okay, that is what, thank you. That is what is most exciting to me in this work, as we're working to reimagine in our high schools what college and career and community pathways look like. And we are beginning to think about programmings in our district that will draw enrollment around specific ways that we can begin to provide pathways for students, both in coordination with those high school pathways, but also unique programs throughout the district. Oftentimes, we are limited in what we do based on the facilities that we have. They are not constructed. They're constructed from a decades-old idea of what school is about. And when we begin to think about what does school in the future look like, and we begin to reimagine schooling differently, in the way that learning needs to take place, and the way that teaching needs to look place in order to provide kind of the modern type of education that are going to prepare our students for success post-high school and really post-college and certifications, it does require us to think differently, not just about what that programming is, but then the kind of structure in which that programming is delivered. And our current classrooms don't necessarily meet that kind of level of learning that needs to take place and transform. And so what's most exciting, as I mentioned to me, is this ability to look at our facilities differently, to look at our facilities in a way that's going to accommodate the kind of programming that's going to move us into the future and ultimately move our students into the future. And we've just never done that level of assessment and marry those two ideas of facilities, structures, spaces, to the notion of what it's going to take to move learning forward.
Thank you, Dr. Corson. Mrs. Wani.
Thank you.
Ms. Wani.
So, Dr. Corson, to maybe kind of give me a little clarity, if you could, is the vision sort of that the committee will be discussing this vision and the future and what the ideal sort of learning and programmatic future looks like for our district in tandem with the work of potentially Grace, who's also surveying the community, bringing that feedback to the committee, and sort of fluid conversation to create all of this sort of layered conversation at once?
Yes, Ms. Wani, thank you for that question. This is exactly the kind of information that will inform that particular committee that is really focused on three major streams of work. One is facility and facility consolidation and facility use. That's kind of one bucket of work. But married to that is the idea of programming. And, we did have our first superintendent enrollment committee meeting just, I think, this past week. Last week, I'm losing track of time. I think it was about sometime in this last week it was. And, it was really interesting that one of the committee members talked about the fact that she indicated, wow, we need to talk about school consolidation also at the same, and school facility use at the same time that we're talking about programming. That the light bulb kind of went on for at least her in that meeting, that we have been talking about these two things in isolation for way too long, and that there's this interconnectedness. And so programming becomes that second stream of work that we want to marry. And then the third stream of work relative to this is then how do we market, communicate the very programs that this committee will be influential in deciding. Does that answer your question, Ms. Wani?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Try me again if I didn't.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, that was helpful. I appreciate that. Sort of related to that, I guess another question that I am sitting here thinking about is you talked about structural solutions and these determining of campus prioritization scores. As part of that analysis, does your team also look at factors like, I don't know, like cost of living in a given community, right? Obviously the birth rate's a big one, but are people moving or not moving? How much, what does the housing market look like? Evaluating other schools and competition in the area as part of its analysis, of where to prioritize, for example.
Yeah, the demographic report usually captures
all
that
of that.
information. And so one of the things we do is we overlay demographic projections with the utilization study, but then thinking about adequacy and suitability and how does that inflate or deflate utilization, certain utilization metric, right? So that's going to give us a different picture than what you would traditionally expect to see, let's say 25 students per classroom. If you were to engage students with a higher student-to-teacher ratio, then a same space is accommodating lesser students, or in other ways, in other areas could be the other way around. So the demographic study would typically capture most of what you're asking for. But then through the community engagement process, typically what we hear are a variety of issues related to that. There's pressures from other systems moving in. That might be one. And there's various types of action items that your students are taking, whether it's entrepreneurial activities after high school, or they enlist, or they're engaged in higher education. How do we better prepare them for that? So those sorts of conversations usually come up in a community engagement setting. And so we typically package that and work closely with leadership in their internal committees to see how they can act on programming, for example, that can capture that sentiment. And the next iteration of that is, what is the impact of facilities of a specific program that you might come up with? A good example, simple example, if I can throw that out, is at Peoria, we did an engagement with the Business Advisory and Faith and Advisory Council. And part of the conversations was about involving partnerships. And so one of the questions was, if we were to bring community partners into the school day, how would we maintain school security versus having the public be embedded in the school building? So that has a real impact on how we imagine space. And so that's a good example of how some of these ideas will lead all the way into the condition of a specific facility. And that can be acted on as a specific campus plan, for example.
Okay, I just have two more questions. So you've obviously worked with quite a few districts, both in Arizona and outside of our state. Have you, and I know obviously, I think like change and return on investment is not always quick turnaround, unfortunately. We have to be patient, but like, can you speak to, like, have you seen cost savings or increased enrollment, like, as a result of this work? Or like, is there an example that you can kind of give us that it's, you know, in this many months after, you know, they started implementing some of the recommendations, they started to see X, so that we can kind of wrap our mind around, you know,
Yeah.
getting the most bang for our buck, you know, considering something like this? What does it translate into?
Well, I'm trying to think of very specific examples, but the most concrete ones would be the tangible ones. Like, for example, the facility conditions component of this will uncover opportunities that could be part of an ask with the state's Building a Renewable Grant program, for example. So we're doing that right now at Peoria. And there, again, that money bucket is obviously tapped out, but our process here is to identify those and get them into the pipeline. So that's an immediate benefit that you can see. And the other part of it is this sort of planning sometimes might give your staff a better barometer to act on what they may think is a priority. For example, the facility conditions might say a roofing replacement is due in 3 years. It's not a critical issue if it's due in 3 or 4 years. But if there's any sort of a suitability-based renovation that needs to happen in that specific building that needs a roofing replacement, those two things can be overlapped. And so that's sort of the benefit that we typically see in this. And the programmatic example that I can think of is what's happening in Maricopa. And there, the state is going to be providing them additional high school space this December, because they are seeing the impacts that you are all seeing, even though they're a growth district. But their high school enrollment seems to be continuing to stabilize, if anything, increase. And they expect that to happen in their junior high kids as well going forward. And so that's what comes to my mind, because that's a conversation I had today.
Okay, thank you for that. And then what would you say to, like, how do you say that you maybe manage any potential unintended but maybe inherent bias, right, in the fact that you're, providing a strategic capital master planning overview that also includes recommendations for design, but you're also a design architectural firm. Like, can you speak to how you manage those kinds of potential biases?
So the two people on our team that do most of this work are educators. Dr. Lee and Ms. Williams was an associate superintendent for Mesa Public Schools for 26 years. And so they do a ton of the work in this space from an adequacy and suitability perspective. And when it comes to concrete, physical action plans per site, it is a conversation, like any conversation is. And so the work that we've done, for example, at Casa Grande Elementary School District, we did this exact same work. And they're operationalizing some of that work, and they're using other architects for that work. So our work is to objectively provide what we provide expertise in, and we can bring expertise from the teaching and learning angle, but also the learning environments angle. And I don't know if there's any specific bias that represents in it. It's because it's always a conversation. So in some instances, certain types of spaces, certain types of openness or transparency or flexibility may not be necessarily appropriate. And so we just calibrate our responses to what a community needs and not come in with a cookie cutter solution for a specific ask.
Or like a preconceived idea of what an
No, we
ideal
don't-
learning space should look like. That's being informed
Right.
by the community.
We don't do that even in our design projects.
Thank you. I had to ask. Thank you.
Mrs. Christensen?
Yes. A follow-on to her question, how do you ensure there are no conflicts of interest? So this organization has a lot of different types of services that you provide, and if you're going to be recommending to maybe like weatherize something as an example, or for more efficient buildings, but then your company also provides those types of services, just as an example. Where are the safeguards to ensure there's no conflicts of interest on recommendations?
So specific to what you're bringing up, if it has to do with something like weatherization, it ultimately has to go through, if it's a state school facilities board funded project, they have liaisons who would be vetting any proposals that come through. So I can't think of a specific conflict of interest that might come out of this, that if it's a programmatic type of an approach, for example, as part of the conversation, you focus on creating more maker spaces across all your schools, let's say. Our approach would be to assess, if you were to provide a maker space in every one of your schools, which spaces that you have can easily accommodate that. And that's based on our professional opinion. If it's a lab space, it might be large enough to accommodate that. So that's typically how we would approach it. It is not a specific design per se, but it's a proposal to think about, here's the path of least resistance to bring forth an idea like so. And I can't imagine us bringing a potential conflict into that, because you are free to choose anybody to do that work in the future. And we're not specifically doing something that only we can provide.
And what work did you do for Chandler Unified? That was one of the people that I reached out to, somebody that I know on that board. What type of work?
So we continue to do work with Chandler Unified. They hired us in 2022 to conduct one portion of what this process is. It's primarily community engagement. They called it Reimagine Chandler. And so it was also based on similar criteria. They were beginning to see flattening and declining enrollment in several of their schools. So we were invited to be a partner to help facilitate conversations with their communities. And we went deeper there on that specific project, where we helped each of the schools that was facing flattening and declining enrollment to brand as a signature program as part of this community engagement process. And out of that, they spawned several renovation projects. They called them reimagined renovations. And we worked on 2 or 3 of them. They've hired other architects to perform those same services. And these renovations, for example, have included creating an innovation hub at Conley Elementary. That's something we did. And so the work involved community engagement, multiple community engagements, and it created a signature path for several of these schools. And as part of that, they hired us to perform replacement school services for Galveston Elementary, which was branded as a service learning academy. And we've done one other school after that, which is under construction. So that was the scope of our services in Chandler.
Okay, thank you for that. And then to my colleagues on the board, I've just been looking at some of our enrollment numbers. That 2017, we had enrollment of 31,446. We had about 15 schools that were under 500 enrollment, and we had about 48 schools, so that's 31% under enrollment. Today, we're looking at, we have roughly 40 schools, and 24 are under 500 enrollment, which is 60%. And so we really, as a district, I want to stress that we're going to have to look at not just consolidation and potential closures, but to get rid of some of these properties, because they, as you stated, a lot of our buildings need maintenance and they need things. And I know there's a lot of individuals that have reached out to the district in the past and would love to partner, lease, purchase some of our facilities. So I just, hopefully there's some people that are on that committee that are listening to this discussion, because the numbers are not looking good and we have to make some tough decisions, and nobody likes closing anything, but 60% under 500 enrollment is a lot.
And those are the kinds of conversations that typically comes out of the data from this set.
Right, but we have, I'm almost finished, I'm sorry, President Pantera, but I have every faith in our committees, because we have excellent committees to be able to make those assessments without having to work with a consultant that has exorbitant fees. So I appreciate the presentation, but I have every confidence in the people here in PV to be able to make these decisions, and that's my personal opinion.
Dr. Lim?
So I want to talk a little bit about kind of that engagement piece, that community engagement piece. So obviously we know engaging with our communities, we're going to get insight, but we know we've obviously lost students to other spaces. So in that community engagement assessment, are we just assessing our voices, or are we doing ways to assess the voices that we're not capturing by talking directly to our schools? So are we talking to community partners or other individuals to try and get some of those voices as to how do we bring students back? We know we won't bring all of them back, but what can our district do specifically given our specific needs in our area to try and not just recruit kids back by creating programs, but can we have concrete reasons and rationale for why we make changes that might increase the flow of students back to our campuses?
Yeah, and the community, we've budgeted for multiple scales of community engagement, and which is typical in this process. And it's also as designed to be a bookend to any ideas that emerge out of this process. And so, it's obviously whole district type conversations are good starting points for this. But then having conversations with specific groups that champion specific ideas and looking for those overlaps and patterns and themes, and others that you see fit as part of this process. We've engaged chambers, for example, and faith and nonprofits, business advisory. Those are typical types of groups that provide different ranges of color to the same conversation. And so the community engagement process, as broad as it is, the better it is. It can feel a little bit chaotic, because that's the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to connect people to be able to have robust conversations about ideas that may be on the different side of that conversation. And so that typically leads to major themes that will emerge. And that is what we use and in conversations with district leadership, to think about what is the impact of these ideas on place, and how do we create a rubric where we can gauge something as an exemplar or something as inadequate or unsuitable. And because our team is not strictly architects, it's learning scientists, it's people who've been in education and understand the role of place, that's the color that we provide to this conversation.
Okay, great. Follow-up question, kind of thinking about that, getting into the nitty and gritty of qualitative research. And if you don't know, I work in qualitative and quantitative research, specifically in community engaged work, just in a different area. So this can be some of the most unwieldy data, especially when you're doing mixed methods with qual and quant. It can go haywire with the amount of data you get and trying to synthesize those ideas. So obviously you guys have professionals that are specialized in the education space. Are they also cross-trained in qual and quant data, or do you have professionals that are specifically qual and quant like professionals that work with this data on a regular?
No, we rely on the educators to provide that.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess then my understanding is your educators are the ones with the qualitative and quantitative data analysis.
The qualitative side, yes. The quantitative side primarily is the facility conditions component of it. And the people that are doing the assessments, Mr. Buchholz, used to be the facilities director at one of the major school districts for 12 years. And he's certified in certain building systems. And he is one of the preeminent experts when it comes to how the state, for example, views the conditions of certain things. So he provides quite a bit of experience, brings quite a bit of experience in this space. And the assessments of the end-of-life, useful life of components is primarily led by Mr. Buchholz. So we have folks who champion specific areas that drive expertise in those areas. And that's the data that we collect in our system. And the benchmarking of it, the cost data we use is a nationally available cost database. So you can compare potential repair costs to replacement costs, apples to apples, to build an index. So we try to keep it as predictable as a model as possible. And if we do need to spawn real projects out of it, we obviously have to inflate construction costs into project costs and all of that. So we can do that too.
Okay, yeah, I think just my question and where my space of concern would be like, so survey data is considered quantitative data in our space, and often we do mixed methods where we may do quant into qual into quant, or qual, quant, quant, depending on how we're doing. So more just making sure that like it could get really unwieldy given the size of our district. And it sounds like you've already done this in other districts, but like Gilbert was more around the facilities is what you've already demonstrated, not maybe the whole picture. And I think we need the whole picture to move forward. So I think my hesitation is just making sure that the right professionals are looking at these really unwieldy data sets as they try to synthesize them into understandable things, and just making sure those education in those spaces there are for those professionals. So if they're used to looking at qual data and quant data, just making sure that we as a board understand that they have those skills and the ability to look at those very mixed method approaches in a way that we actually get the actionable things we want out of it, because they're so hard to work with sometimes.
Anyone else? Mrs. Greenberg.
Yeah, this isn't actually a question in this, so I'm just going to do a little stream of conscious thought for a moment. And I guess what it is after listening to everything is, for me, because in a professional capacity, I've led strategic planning for small and medium-sized companies, so, not something the size of this district. But I have participated in strategic planning for this district, and I've obviously, as everybody knows, I've served in this district for a long time, and I guess in listening to all of this, I guess I'm just, again, this has nothing to do with you guys, and, quite honestly, bringing Dr. Lee back to help do this is, I think, a gold star for you guys. I think Mike's a perfect person to help with this. I guess I'm a little disappointed that we have, I feel, kind of gone away from that comprehensive approach we have had in the past. And I'm not saying, that we have become more siloed in how we have made decisions. over time, we have had different strategic plans. I think some of them have been more successful than others. But I also just, I don't want to be paralyzed with it, but, we're going, if we move forward with you guys or in another way, and we go through the process, we get recommendations, and we go, okay, we're going to identify, okay, school A needs this, and school B needs this, and we're going to transform school C this way. And 5 years down the road, trends change in education. So like maker spaces didn't used to be a big thing, and now they are, and they're a great thing. I think they're terrific. But, in 5 years, are they going to be? Or, the process we have gone through securing our schools better. I've sat on this board when we had to put bond funds into completely changing ingresses and egresses, to adding bulletproof glass, to play, And so, again, I don't want any of that to paralyze a process. But I'm just, I'm just concerned, I kept thinking we were doing most of this already. So it's just, for me, just wrapping my head around the enormity of the process and the enormity of the price tag of the process, and we all acknowledge that, and where that puts us in the end. Because I've always been a big proponent of, we shouldn't be siloing, we should be integrating. And I appreciate that that's the main push here. But it's a big task. So just wanted to throw that out, that I feel like there are many pieces of this we already do. And just, is this a process we can handle more in-house, some out, et cetera? Just, that's what I'm wrapping my head around right now.
Dr. Lim. Yeah, and I think I have a question. I can give you a question, Ann. So I wrote down and I circled strategic plan, and I know ours is due for an update. So we technically are probably at the end of the shelf life of one strategic plan, and we don't have one in place. And we're about to have this conversation without actually knowing what our next strategic plan is. So I guess my concern is that we are going into this without actually having what would be our new strategic plan. I guess I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, is it better to have it before or after, and this probably to Dr. Corson more for that question of that concern that we are at the end of the shelf life for our current one, so.
Yeah, to your point, Dr. Lim, we do need to invest in a district of relooking at a larger strategic plan that deals with all-encompassing everything from student achievement to other things. So although I don't know that this is a strategic plan in the traditional sense of a district strategic plan, there certainly is a strategic approach to thinking about how programming connects with enrollment, that connects with facility usage. And certainly the work of this would feed into and inform a larger strategic plan, and a little bit of vice versa. To your question about which comes first, district strategic plan leading this work or this work leading a strategic plan, and I'm not sure that there's the right way to do it. I think one can begin to inform the other in a much more iterative process, as opposed to thinking more sequentially about what happens first versus second.
And we've seen that too. It has happened both ways.
Yep. Ms. Swanee?
Did you want to ask some questions before
I would
ask
like
you?
to eventually.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
No,
I can
to
ask
me,
mine after.
thank you. To me, it seems like this information is the stuff you base your strategic plan on. I've always been a fan of being proactive, doing something, that's getting ahead of problems. But when you're constantly putting out fires and doing things, our people are always busy here in the here and now. It's hard to be forward-looking. Something like this would be an excellent vehicle for not only strategic planning, but for doing that proactive stuff to save us money and heartache down the road. I mean, we talk about it as being an investment. What would you say would be our return on this investment?
Depending on how it's structured, it can be multiple fold. The key benefit that we see a lot is the overlapping of information sets and not acting on something prematurely. That's how the significant return on investment happens. Like, for example, you may be putting facility remediation money into facilities that perhaps need to be retired. Or you may be investing monies into buildings that are not suitable for the types of programming that will serve to attract families and retain families. So those are usually the kinds of gaps we see as part of this process. And so there's quite a bit of overlaps that we can find between those. And the idea is to provide as much clarity from a broader base of considerations, not strictly the tangible assets we see. Yes, there are stressors that are having to, that are making you make some decisions that are challenging. That's the reality of it. But this is also about the then what, right? So it's a question about how do you not just flatten that curve, make it go back up the other way. And it's about creating valuable choices for your families and creating programming that is attractive and thinking about the impacts of those programming on your facilities the way it is, and does it make sense to retire certain facilities that are just not conducive or suitable for those types of programming. Those are the kinds of ROIs we typically begin to see from this process.
Ms. Swanee?
I mean, I think from where I'm standing, which is not, you know, any, like you're able to and see over the years and years and years, right? Like the evolution of all of these things. I sort of wonder if, you know, we're now at just a point in time where there's been so much change, right, in how we have to sort of like approach education, look at education, just from all various factors, right? So to me, I do think something like this is incredibly valuable because I don't see how, as amazing as our committees and the facilitators of those committees are, they also have full-time jobs, which is not to do this work. So that's, I mean, I think if we could clone all of you and the parents and the principals who are also parents and principals and cabinet so that we could have multiple of you to do all of the jobs that you do, then maybe we would not, maybe we wouldn't need you, right? But that isn't the reality. So I do look at this as like, it is an opportunity because, you know, to be proactive and not reactive, to President Pantera's point, right? So that is exciting to me. But some thoughts that I do have is there any way if we needed to have a conversation or consider a different scope or scale that maybe could still work and be valuable, but maybe make the price tag more palatable, number one. Number two, is there any room for negotiation on this price? You don't have to answer that out loud, but just think about that. And number three, this is for Mrs. Berrigan. I know it's bond money, but can you help me understand, like, when we go out for bonds, we typically, right, I've sat on those committees, I know you're very thoughtful about, we're gonna ask for this amount from the community, not just for funsies, but because we need it for this. So, like, where would this come from? If, you know, any amount that would be going towards a project like this?
Yeah, there is a section, I don't have the bond pamphlet in front of me, but something along the lines of like architectural services, fees, engineering services, it's service fees, that this would be applicable under. So we do have a section for that within our bond.
And we currently have that available?
Yes.
And if
From the 2023 bond. Mm-hmm.
From the 2023 bond. So have you all looked at, okay, these were some of the projects we were thinking about maybe doing with that money, and now we're gonna hold them off? Like, is there a trade-off that we need to know about or be thinking about as part of this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, we have fees set in there for other projects. I suppose it could pull away from something else, but it's probably more towards the end of the bond, and right now we're planning for this coming summer bond projects. While we have a list and idea of future bond projects, I don't know off the top of my head which ones those might be that we would pull from. But I will also say, excuse me, you know, we did some just facility planning work with a different vendor. It's just the traditional version of what facility cycle replacement looks like. And that's about $65,000 per feeder pattern, and so we've only done that for one feeder pattern. So regardless, there's about another $250,000 or $300,000 worth of fees that's already in the bond set aside for that. So this would be about $165,000 beyond that.
Okay.
For a much more comprehensive than a capital plan.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Christensen.
Yes, so I'm going to address Bergen, Dr. Lim, and President Pantera's comments. So I don't think that our taxpayers would be very happy if so much of this is going to consultants' fees. I do understand we do have some bond projects for the summer, but that you see that return on investment, whereas I will argue you can't really do, President Pantera asked about ROI, he can't answer ROI because return on investment is based on the findings that we have and then the investigation findings and then what we decide to do. So you can't put a price tag or a return on investment on that. They're consulting fees. And so the other thing that Dr. Lim brought up is she asked, well, how can we bring students back? And that is, again, not a question for a consultant. That's us. That's like what Principal Strophus presented. We're doing the career pathways. Those are our decisions internally as to how to bring our students back. The ARCH, we are a strong STEAM school district and community. We have amazing school district, and that's marketing. It's all of us pulling together to do that. So I'm still not convinced that this is the right path. I am listening to my colleagues on the board, and some of them seem to think so, but just with such a high price tag, and I don't really think our taxpayers would be happy to be spending such enormous fees on consultants.
Mrs. Greenberg.
Yeah, I do want to make it clear that I do think this is valuable. Maybe that didn't come across in my last set of comments, and I don't believe Dr. Corson would be bringing it forward if he didn't, and I certainly think it is contingent on us as a board to consider, we just asked Dr. Corson to be our superintendent, and I think we need to provide him with the tools to be successful. And so, I think there's a lot of pieces here that we need to look at, but I don't want anybody to think I don't think this is a good idea. I do. We need the data. We need to engage our communities. We need to look at all of the pieces, and we always have. I appreciate what you all bring to this. Again, it's that price tag and getting over that hump on the price tag. I'm just going to be honest. That's where it is for me. So, just wanted to throw that in there.
Dr. Lim.
So I've got a question, which will probably end up in multiple questions, and I'll get to my point, I promise. So as you're doing this community engagement, are we going to be engaging all of our sites?
The way we've budgeted this is to have 3 large engagements that are district-wide. We have done engagements or strategic capital plans where we have engaged every site. The challenge with that is time and money. It's much more expensive to do that. So for larger districts, this is exactly what we did at Peoria, at Irving ISD, at Gilbert, is to do large-scale community meetings, which mixes and matches. So the conversations end at the district level, primarily thinking about broader contexts, broader influences, and we try to mix and match people when they get into discussions. There's a broad sampling of folks that the discussions can be broader. And by doing some targeted engagements with specific groups of folks who can champion specific areas, that's the initial part of it. What we've also included is feeder pattern-based engagements as a bookend when we get to a point where there's patterns and themes and action items emerging. So it's sort of a bookend. It's a big picture, but then feeder pattern-based as a back end engagement strategy. That's what's included in this price.
Okay, yeah, so I think, I'll ask. So let me formulate my question. Give me a moment. Yeah, so I'll make a comment and a question at the same time. So I think kind of my overall concern there is, we are a district with lots of strong voices, and I worry that bigger meetings in this capacity, we might lose some of those voices in some of our communities. So I would hope that maybe it's supplemented at a district level by our staff, but some sort of additional engagement more at the local level, getting that information, because I worry that we might lose some voices in that process. That being said, I know the cost it takes to do qualitative research at the capacity that you're going to be asked to do at this size of the district. So I'm not shocked by the cost and the scope. That being said, I don't think 3 large engagements at that level are going to be enough to get us all the information we need, and that might have to be something that have to be supplemented in some capacity to make sure we get all those voices in the room, and that might be more targeted, smaller focus groups that are really at that really small size, because that large size scale dampens the more meek voices of a community. And so I'd worry we'd lose those voices in those larger things. We often don't go above 8 in a focus group because of that exact issue.
So let me just throw some more clarification on that. So the large group meetings usually start with a big picture visioning that includes everybody. Then we do breakouts. Everybody goes into smaller rooms, no more than 15 to 20 in a room, and about 6 to 8 per team, that we have 3 of our facilitators in each of those rooms, bringing forth the ideas that emerge in the big group and influences that we all agree that are relevant to the district, and engage in deeper conversation in a smaller group. So absolutely agree with you. The small group discussions, in fact, we ask for students to be a part of this, and those are the first stakeholders we engage in group discussions based on the broader data that's emerged in a visioning polling, for example. So the intimate conversations do happen in an intimate setting. It's no more than 6 to 8 people.
And then I think my question is, if we were to go forward with this, again, that's an if, would we map onto what we did in Indian Bend, making sure that it is available at least in Spanish, but we do probably have other languages that may need to be available as well, depending on what area we are in. We have parts of our district that are closer to TSMC. While we don't typically see those students, we may have families that may speak Taiwanese or English may not be their first language. So are we able to accommodate that and make sure that those voices are heard, whether it's surveys, whether it's in the focus groups?
So we will translate the deck we use to Spanish, and we have 5 native Spanish speakers who do facilitation in Spanish. So depending on how this shakes out, we can, through the RSVP process, identify who needs supports through primarily Spanish, not other languages. And yeah, we're very comfortable facilitating in Spanish.
And then I think my question then would be, at a district level, are we going to kind of gauge who's coming, so that if we do have a person who is not native English speaker and they don't speak Spanish, that we can either find the right person to assist or find a community member that might be able to act as a translator and assist with their engagement? This is going to be one-offs. These are going to be a few number of people, but again, their voices matter, because if you learn about certain communities and they find a school that they love or a space that they love, they'll tell other families that are moving to the valley that, oh yeah, maybe you should come to this particular area. And I know we have some pockets of that already among certain ethnic groups, that we already have those pockets that exist. And so how can we make sure those pockets have their voices heard?
Yeah, Dr. Lim, I think that's an important point. As part of the community engagement, it's really important that we engage multiple stakeholder groups across our district and our communities. And so we would need to make every effort to make sure that those voices are mitigated and they're actually heard at the table. And to add on to Sarvanan's notion about the community engagement opportunities, as a district, we've been talking about multiple touches to that. So, in somewhat of an accordion style, where we might start large, with some community engagement forums, and then we might go to smaller focus groups, and then we might go out to a larger district survey that goes out to all community, all to continue to gather information and refine that information, or to validate what we're hearing in certain focus groups to make sure that that actually is representative of a larger group through maybe a large survey. So using multiple opportunities to gain perspective, not just in the beginning, but really throughout the process, I think would be important, including the idea of making sure that we are providing accommodations for all voices to be heard.
Okay, great. Thank you both.
Any more discussion? All right, then.
Mr. Pantera, do you mind if I add one more point?
A little bit, but go ahead.
I know the hour is getting late, but so a couple of things that come to my mind, and I appreciate the board's conversation about this. This, as I mentioned, isn't something that I would be bringing to the governing board without serious consideration and thoughtfulness about the impact I think that this could have with this. But you are part of that discussion, and I appreciate the governing board weighing in to thinking about the future of this district. We've talked a lot tonight about return on investment, and I think that's incredibly important to think about. I also think about return on objective, and to think about, like, what are we trying to accomplish as a school district? What are we trying to think about in terms of the future, both in programming, in terms of being stewards of our financial resources, of being cognizant of having thoughtful planning around our facilities. And it's not to discount any plans that we've had in the past or any work that we've done in the past, but this is an opportunity to be future forward in our thinking, and that does require an investment. I don't believe that as a district that we can pull off the level of this comprehensive connect the dots, as Sarvanan has talked about. I just don't believe that we have the capacity to do that. Now, do we have the capacity as a district to make good decisions, to make thoughtful decisions, using good perspectives, using specific data sources that we have? Yes, I think as a district we have been doing that for a number of years. But to look into the future in terms of what our community deserves and what our community demands of us is going to take more than a loose consolidation of data sources. It's going to require us, whether we choose to do this now or at another time, our community really demands for us to think differently about how we connect these very data sources so that we can make even better informed decisions that are not just about the moment, but really with a lens about how this decision we're making today is going to impact us 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I just appreciate the idea of this kind of roadmap that is not the roadmap, but it represents a possible roadmap that then our committee structures and our thoughtful individuals and leaders and parents and community members can use to then decide how we want to move forward as a district. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to consider, and I appreciate the discussion tonight. Thank you, President Pantera.
Thank you, Dr. Corson. All right, then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Before we adjourn, I would like to remind everyone that our next regular governing board meeting will be held on Thursday, May 14th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. We are adjourned.